Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Pablo and I'm pretty much going to talk about Elasticsearch for Lua developers. And the idea of this project kind of joined together three different verticals. So the first one is Lab Lua. So I was a student at Pookie and kind of worked at Lab Lua doing some projects. Also, the Google Summer of Code. I have participated in Google Summer of Code as a student in 2011 and 2014. And we have been trying to kind of create projects in Lua, kind of using the sponsoring of Google Summer of Code. And the third one is pretty much kind of Elastic, which is the company that I work for and has some kind of cool projects that I really like it. And I was trying to put everything together. So, about myself, pretty much I've worked with Hadoop, and I'm kind of very interested in the big data world and doing kind of analytics. And Elasticsearch today is kind of a search engine and also some kind of analytics platform. So I kind of like it a lot, and that's pretty much what I do today. So regarding Google Summer of Code, we usually have some projects that we set up and some mentors that we assign to kind of take care of these projects. But of course, we need students to kind of do the projects itself. So which student should I kind of choose? So there were kind of 5 interested students in the project. We had like 3 very good proposals at the time. And basically the key points for me at choosing were kind of the background. So Lua and Elasticsearch, they were kind of very important to do the project. Open source was really important too, because if the student likes open source, he usually likes to kind of play around, write blog posts, help people, kind of take ownership of the project and keeping contributing. So that was really important. The availability, so how many hours per week the student was going to be available to kind of work and develop. And of course, the development likelihood after Google Summer of Code. So if the student would be able to kind of take ownership and keep going on the project. So I decided by Pablo, which is a 30-year student of computer science in India, and he's very active in capture the flags context. He likes networking, security, development, and he pretty much self-taught himself by reading books and articles. He was like very nice. I started talking to him previous to the Google Summer of Code, kind of not an interview, but just get to know a little bit. And he was like very interested. He had a very good background in Linux, doing stuff in the command line, which was actually kind of interesting and important to me. So the agenda for the talk is pretty much Elasticsearch. So what is Elasticsearch? What is Elasticsearch Lua? So how they kind of can be get together. Elasticsearch Lua itself, which is the project, and web papers is kind of a use case. So I used to develop a website at Pookie, and we use it Lua. And so how can you play around with Elasticsearch and Lua together? And at the end, a little bit of the company and other things that you can do that I did with this kind of using Elasticsearch and Lua. So Elasticsearch is pretty much an open source, distributed, scalable, highly available, document-oriented, RESTful, full-text search engine with soft real-time search and analytics. So the important part here is, regarding open source, it's very good that you can pretty much play and get to know everything, and you can get a lot of people to contribute. Actually, that's why we are all here today. And it's distributed and scalable, so you can run Elasticsearch in one node, but you can also run Elasticsearch in 4 different nodes, and it's going to be pretty much like scaling horizontally. It's highly available, so if you lose one node, you keep operating like with 100% of your data available. It's document-oriented, so everything inside Elasticsearch, it's pretty much described as a JSON. And JSON is important because it's really straightforward, and most programmers know how to kind of communicate with JSON. It's kind of easy. It's RESTful, so everything is over HTTP requests. So Elasticsearch provides you a lot of a big set of an API with a lot of different endpoints that you can use to do pretty much everything. So with just JSON and HTTP, you can kind of communicate and interact with Elasticsearch. And that's really good because we can play around with Lua, Perl, Python, PHP, whatever language you like, whatever language you're interested in, you can do things. So, full text search engine, it allows you to kind of place search in your website and get very powerful features. So if you go into Wikipedia today and you start typing, you get auto-completion, you get highlighting, you get good results with ranking and relevancy, and what's running on the background is pretty much Elasticsearch. And you can also do some kind of analytics with it. So we have another product which is called Kibana that helps you kind of get data from Elasticsearch and build some kind of visualizations and put together a dashboard with pie charts, line charts, bar charts, and everything. And it's really easy to kind of do that. I'll show at the end something with the where papers. So getting up and running, it's really, really easy. It's basically downloading a file, untar, and execute Elasticsearch. All you need is Java 1.7, and then you can go to the URL at localhost. That's kind of the default configuration, 9200, and start playing around with Elasticsearch. So, Elasticsearch and Lua. So, how was the project? What was the idea behind the project? So, it was, first of all, a 3-month project. So, in Google Summer of Code, the student only has like 3 months to kind of develop everything. So, I had to keep that in mind in kind of defining what we would do or not. So, a complete Lua client to access Elasticsearch REST API. So, the complete here, it does not mean that it takes all the features that Elasticsearch provides because it's a 3-month project, but pretty much that it's kind of a package that you can kind of use for at least do most of the basic stuff or most of the good stuff that Elasticsearch provides you. There are a lot of different official clients for Elasticsearch, PHP, Python, Perl, and these are important because they are official clients supported by the company, and they serve kind of a model, kind of a base for the student to kind of play around and follow those ideas. And one important thing was kind of respect the student. So what is the background of the student, what the students feel comfortable about doing and things like that. So for example, he decided to kind of do object-oriented approach in the development. It's not my favorite one, but okay, like that's what he feels comfortable, so let's go that way, see how it goes, how it feels, and maybe if it's not a good approach, we can change later and kind of evolve. Regarding the clients, we have some design principles about the clients itself. So the first one is nobody should have a reason not to use the client. So the client should be kind of simple and straightforward, and people would not say, you have decided this, doing that, and I'm not going to use. So being kind of pretty much simple is the best way here. So we have no strong opinions, so no fights inside, and respect the language. That's really, really important. We have different clients for different languages, and the most important thing is the programmer using the client. So it has to be like together with the language itself. So PHP would be very different from Perl, and Lua, of course, would kind of take Lua stuff in regard. So another interesting thing is, okay, so you have Elasticsearch, everything is JSON and HTTP. So why do we have a client? Why not just like get JSON library, Lua socket, and do an HTTP request with some JSON? And the point is that the client can offer you more stuff than just like a wrapper, okay? So Elasticsearch is about distributed systems. So when you're talking about distributed systems, you have many nodes. And when you are doing a request to one node, if you do not change the nodes, you are creating kind of a hotspot. You are not like using all you can. So the client usually offers you some kind of sniffer to kind of get to know the entire topology of the cluster, and also a selector to kind of try to randomize the access so you can pretty much use all the nodes. Besides, there are different features that the client can provide you that Elasticsearch does not have. For example, reindexing. So if you have kind of one index with a lot of data and you kind of want to change the way data is in that index, a common thing to do is kind of reindex the data. And Elasticsearch does not have this from scratch, and the client can do that for you. This is one thing that the client, the Lua client does. And of course, a common syntax to the language itself. The .NET client has a very easy way to kind of do the Boolean queries that Elasticsearch provides, and the idea is to kind of use the language itself to play with a very easy syntax over here. At the end, the kind of high-level architecture that we have discussed and kind of come around is pretty much that. So you get the client with the main functionality and the functions for creating a document, deleting, getting a document. You get kind of this helper for new features, for example, reindex. And of course, you got a parser. Actually, we are using the CJSON one, but we can change. For now, it's the faster one, but maybe we'll have some problems with arrays and things like that. JSON's kind of tricky in that sense. So you got a transport layer with kind of connecting to a connection pool with a lot of connections. Right now we are using Lua socket, which is kind of not persistent on the connection itself. So maybe we need to change that in the future. We got a sniffer to get all the topology of the cluster, and also the selector to kind of define how are you going to access the different nodes. So Elasticsearch Lua itself. So the first thing is, okay, Elasticsearch uses JSON. And we have Lua. So what's the big difference in terms of just defining data? Okay, so they are very similar, and what you can pretty much kind of write in JSON over here, you just change a little bit, and it's kind of very similar size from arrays. So it's pretty much like very straightforward to come from HTTP, JSON, and just start writing things in Lua. So how is the CRUD? So here I'm defining pretty much a paper, so I'm playing here with publications, okay? So the paper will have title, year, author, a lot of different stuff. And to get Elasticsearch and index this document, it's pretty much require Elasticsearch, which is the library. You get a client, and if you don't pass any parameters, we are going to use the default configurations for timeout, localhost, the port, and everything else. So after you get the client, you can pretty much do an index operation, which is pretty much writing into Elasticsearch. Okay, and when you write to Elasticsearch, you need to tell Elasticsearch where are you writing. So I'm writing into index papers. The type is where, it's pretty much a tag. The ID of the document is 1, and I need to pass the body, which is pretty much what I'm going to write inside the document itself, which is the paper, which is what I have defined over there. All right? So, of course, now you can get the document, and it's just straightforward as indexing. Client get, papers, where, ID 1, you get back the document. If there is any errors, you get back the errors and everything. If you want to update the document, you just call update. You say the document that you want to update, and then you pass in the body what do you want to update. Here I'm updating inside the document the field title and just writing updated title. Okay, you need to specify this doc because in Elasticsearch you can, for example, pass a script and do some kind of scripting update using other fields or things like that. And finally, we can delete the document with just calling the delete. Okay, so how do we do search?
In the previous example, when I want to delete the title, how should I do it?
Delete what? No, you cannot delete just one
field.
field.
Document, can I set the title to remove that attribute?
No, not in the case. You could do with the script. If you pass a script and set the field to new, now you are deleting. With the doc, you cannot. So how do we do search? So pretty much search can be done like very straightforward. So you call search, you tell where are you searching and which is the query. So what words do you want to search for? Okay, so here I'm searching for requirements. Elasticsearch is very flexible, so you don't need to exactly search in one index, so one logical group of documents. I can search into multiple groups of documents. So if I have one index called papers and another index just called conferences or whatever, I can search in all of them together just using kind of star over here with the wildcards or different types also. So if I don't want to search requirements in all fields that I have, I just want to search in the title field, then I just put title requirements and I'm searching for requirements just in the title field. Alright? And what if I do some more complex stuff? For example, here I'm doing a multi-match, which is pretty much a kind of a search where I can search in different fields. I'm still searching for requirements, but now I'm searching for requirements in keywords, title, and abstract. And here I'm doing a little bit more. I'm giving a weight of 10 to keywords, a weight of 5 to title, and a weight of 1 to abstract. So I can kind of play around with the relevancy of each field in my search. And I'm also doing a filter here, so I only want to get documents from the last 3 years. Alright? So what you get back, it's pretty much a little object, and you can of course access all these fields, and they mean like the time that it took inside Elasticsearch to kind of complete your search request. If there was a timeout or not, the number of shards, which is pretty much the unit of scaling of Elasticsearch, and all the hits that you got. So all the documents that matched your query. All right. So inside the hits object, you get the total. So the total number of objects that match it. Here I only have one object matching. And the max score, which is pretty much the score or how well the best document match your query. Okay? After that, you got an entire array with all the hits for your query. And for each hit, what you get is the meta information, the score, so how well this document matched, and the source back. And the source is pretty much the raw document that I have inserted before. So I get everything back with title, keywords, year, and everything else. So why Elasticsearch? Why use Elasticsearch? What is it useful for? What can I do with Elasticsearch? So I pretty much, as I said, had a website that I used to work at Pookie for the workshop of requirements engineering. And basically the idea of this website is be very, very, very simple and straightforward. You get in the website, you see like all the past conferences and workshops that happen, and you can click on the links and be redirected to the page itself. However, there is another project which is called Web Papers, which is pretty much all the publications for all the workshop conferences, the workshop requirements engineering that happened before. And you can pretty much look into these papers, kind of play around with them, see abstract, see the authors, you can see the number of downloads for PDFs, you can download the article itself and things like that. And the web papers uses pretty much Apache, CGI Lua, MySQL database, and the Google search. Which means that if you go into the web papers website right now, you have kind of a box to do a Google search and pretty much find things inside your domain, but using Google. So why do I need Elasticsearch? Why I cannot do pretty much implement my search with MySQL or just leave Google search doing it? So regarding MySQL, pretty much it's not a full text search. It's very good. It's a relational database, but it has very specific kind of topics that it addresses. It's not. It was not built for like kind of do everything. And full text search is kind of complicated in relational databases. First of all, they are usually slow. Okay, if you have a lot of data, it usually does not perform well. Also, you usually don't have like text analysis, so there is no stemming or kind of stop words and things like that. You don't have scoring, so there is no relevancy, no difference between the results. Is it match or not match it? You cannot do things like auto-completion, highlighting, and things like that. So, Google, it's nice. Google is very good regarding search. Search is really, 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 really powerful. We all know that. However, sometimes you just don't want some Google custom search linking into Google in your website. Second, when people search in your website, you don't want them redirected to a different website, which is Google itself, and then people click here and get back to your website. So the user experience is really bad in that sense. Also, here you are searching everything in your domain. So you get back, for example, PDFs directly. But I don't want my user to take a look into a PDF. I want my user to be able to look into a better kind of interface with some kind of abstract, better organize it. Of course, it will have a PDF link, but I want it to be able to kind of look into everything without having directly the PDF. So how can I use Elasticsearch? Pretty much you can implement your own search result page. Of course, it will give you a little bit more work than just using the Google search, which is a link and already a page that's done for you. However, it's not a lot of work to put up a page with some fields and abstract, title, and things like that. It's rather easy. After that, you get like relevancy based on what you want. You can even use downloads of the PDFs to kind of do relevancy regarding these articles. You can use title, you can use abstract, you can use whatever you want. Even the year, you can say, if it's kind of a closed paper, it was published like in the last few years, give it more relevancy compared to the old ones from 10 years ago. After all, you can also do autocomplete, highlighting. You can even try to use some kind of geo information to say, okay, this paper is closer to this user, maybe he's more interested in that or the language, if it's Spanish, Portuguese, or English, things like that. And of course you can play with Lua all the time, and that's very good. So Elasticsearch is pretty much not alone. So what does Elastic as a company gives you to kind of play around and even get more than just search? So Elastic started in 2012, and we are now in 2015, and we have a lot of different projects. So you can use Elasticsearch to kind of store, search, and analyze, and you can use Lua to communicate, to index data, and to get data. But you can also use kind of Kibana, which I'm showing in the next slide, to visualize and explore your data, to kind of play around and pretty much see dashboards and get information. And if you want to read from some file, you can use Logstash to just get data from one place and send it to another. You can even in the middle of the process kind of enrich data. For example, if you have an IP, you can get like the location with country, city, just by the IP. And you can use all of that as a service if you just don't want to deploy. So what did I do with web papers and Elasticsearch and here with Kibana? So Kibana is just as Elasticsearch, it's one command and run. And I started putting some visualizations around. So here I pretty much have a bar chart over the years of publication, so I can see how many articles were published in each year of the conference. And here I have a pie chart dividing the languages of my articles, so I can pretty much compare how many English articles I have, Portuguese, Spanish, and here I can see there is kind of a new thing or an empty string, so I should look into that and see why there are some papers without any language. Maybe it's expected, maybe it's not, so I can check it out. I can even see the top authors that have published it, so here you can see like the top 4. And I can pretty much play around with keywords too. So here I'm looking into the top 4 keywords. So I have requirements, we have requisitos, which is pretty much requirements in Portuguese. We have software and engineering. So these are kind of the most popular keywords among the articles. I can separate them by different languages, so I can see the important words in English or in Portuguese or even in Spanish. And what you get back is that pretty much all of them had kind of the same words in different languages. So we got requirements, requisitos, we got engineering, engenharia, you got like development, software, here you got scenarios, which is very popular here, which is not in the others. You got modelizing and model, which are kind of similar. So you can kind of explore and do a lot of different stuff. One interesting thing here is that in the text analysis here, when I'm putting things together, and you can also get these results from Lua, not necessarily using Kibana. Here I'm kind of breaking, tokenizing the terms. So I could actually get keywords if we go back a long time ago. Yeah. So here the keywords are kind of requirements in engineering, and here it's kind of requirements on the station. So you can even decide if the keyword for you is going to be just one word when you're doing the analysis, the aggregations, or if you're going to take the entire term as a keyword. So it's kind of an option for you how you want to analyze your text. Okay, so just closing, we love our community. It's very important for us, and of course that's also in the Elasticsearch Lua project, to have help from people, have people asking questions, helping with code and discussions. So we have forums to discuss all of that. We have a lot of things in GitHub, so you can come over, open issues and things like that and discuss. We got meetups all around the world that we kind of do discussions about all the different projects, being clients and Lua, PHP, Python, or just being about Elasticsearch itself. And the future regarding the Elasticsearch Lua project is pretty much start collecting a lot of different use cases. So start finding people with real applications that are interested in kind of playing around, so we can kind of define where should we kind of waste our time and make more stuff. Of course, we need a lot of tests. Just to remember, this was a student project in a 3-month window time. So of course not mature enough to go into production or anything like that. We need tests, we need more time to kind of get it better. After that, one important thing is to kind of automate integration with the Elasticsearch development cycle. So every new release of Elasticsearch, we don't need to waste a lot of time updating code. We should do that in kind of an automatic fashion, and that's probably the next big step we should do. And of course, after we have real cases, people using and things like that, we can make it an official client and pretty much give you the guarantee that Elasticsearch Lua can be used with Elasticsearch at production, and it's supported. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have questions, more than welcome.
Do you grant support for scripting with Lua on the server?
This is a good question. Not for now. It's a little bit more complicated. The point about scripting is when you give scripting to people, they can do a lot of stuff, and then you get a problem with security. We had problems with the security inside Elasticsearch, and we are kind of trying to minimize the available scripts that you are able to kind of execute. So we are kind of decreasing the number of options that you have in scripting right now. But yes, after we got the client running, I think that putting scripting with Lua inside Elasticsearch server is the next step, and it's not like a big issue. However, what we usually suggest for scripting is that instead of sending the script from the client, which can be kind of a security problem depending on your architecture, it's kind of just putting it in a file inside the server itself and kind of just reading from this file and running. But yes, I think Lua is probably on my kind of radar to develop and push even more into Elasticsearch.
So sort of following up from my question on the last question.
Yeah.
So it seems like the Elasticsearch is really good for like relatively few documents with sort of big texts. But in my case, I have lots and lots of documents, but they're really, really small and really sort of. Do you think that Elasticsearch would be a good fit for that as well?
Yes, Elasticsearch was actually built kind of with the distributed systems idea, and the idea is pretty much scaling and having kind of big data or a lot of files to do analysis and things like that. So here my example was a very small website because that's what I had with Lua in hands to play around. Another thing that I would like to show, but I didn't have kind of the expertise to play around, is pretty much like sensors and Internet of Things stuff. So collecting information on the environment at every second and sending it to Elasticsearch and building this kind of dashboards with information about temperature, people walking and things like that, or even about your building, who's going in, who's going out. So of course you can use here. You can use, for example, Lua and the Elasticsearch Lua client to kind of parse a file and send everything into Elasticsearch. It can handle, I don't know, like petabytes of data. We have currently Netflix using with 500 terabytes of data right now, so it really scales. Or you can just use Logstash to read from the file, index into Elasticsearch, and then use Kibana to play around. It's very flexible. We have a lot of different tools, but we encourage you to use, of course, here Elasticsearch Lua so I can get feedback and even make it better.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
They use also by GitHub, so has a lot of
Yes, GitHub also uses Elasticsearch.
small files sometimes.
Okay.
No more questions?
What kind of work is to, you mentioned in the slide with the client, what's expected to happen? It needs to be tested more strongly. Do you have any users of the client?
No, right now I don't think. I think you were pretty much kind of looking into it and was kind of helping in GitHub. So I hope you can pretty much start playing around. I think for basic scenarios we are pretty much covered, and it depends a lot on how many nodes of Elasticsearch you have. For example, I don't think now the connection pool is working as it should because of Lua socket, so I need to take a look into that. And yeah, it's just like what we have right now. It's a Google Summer of Code project after 3 months, and of course it needs to kind of fix a lot of stuff, make a lot of stuff better. I was looking into the code and there are a lot of improvements. So I think that from now to probably December we'll have a lot of improvements, and I will start to use it really in a lot of different projects and start playing with some kind of small sensors and things like that. So
sorry if you already explained, but you have this Lua driver for Elasticsearch, am I correct?
Lua?
Lua driver or client for
Client,
Elasticsearch.
yeah.
It's not currently integrated with the upstream Elastic project, or?
No, it's not. Yes, it was a Google Summer of Code project, and we just finished developing, so it's pretty much in the GitHub of the student. These are the links.
Yeah, okay.
I will give you that to you later if you want to download the presentation.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much go to GitHub. He wrote a blog post telling a little bit of the experience on the work on the project. So
Okay, and am I correct that you used Lua socket on that?
yes.
Okay, do you have plans like supporting non-blocking NGX TCP type of socket as well, as if you run this client, let's say in OpenREST?
Yes, it's a much bigger project, and I'm not so sure if I have the time to kind of take ownership of that. But since you need kind of a client that needs to be able to kind of rotate and use connections wisely, probably that's something that I'll need to take a look into that. But no idea on the roadmap on that or anything like that.
But maybe I can look at it.
Yeah. Right now it's using like, I was taking a look at the code and it's using kind of a dumb approach, just using HTTP requests all the time. So we have kind of the connection pool implementation in terms of architecture, but internally it's using HTTP request.
So I'm actually going to continue on from that question. So are you just using Lua sockets HTTP request and nothing else?
Yes.
So that means you've got a new TCP connection for every request. Cool. I was going to say I'm currently working on HTTP library. It'd be interesting to talk to you.
Yes, me
Yeah.
too. I was looking into your GitHub and everything. Yeah.
Cool.
I think we should totally go that way. Who's first? Okay.
Right.
Thank you.